What to do if you have a family member who is experiencing a mental health crisis, or what to do if you have a family member who needs a mental health wellness check, or needs to speak with someone, or is presenting a safety issue to themselves or others. You know, unfortunately, as I speak, we have seen in recent years, certainly within the last year or so, but years actually, we've seen many situations to where you have someone that is having some type of mental health issue or crisis. And the first thing that is done is someone gets on the phone, they call 911, and the police show up. And unfortunately, far too many of these situations end up with not the person getting help or getting treatment, but the person being either seriously injured and or killed. I think about Daniel Prue. I think it was in Rochester, New York, end of last year, was having an issue, was having a reaction. Police were called, and within minutes, the situation was just mishandled and he was dead. I think about just even within the last few weeks or so, there was a man that was in California. He was in a park. He was drinking beer. And for some reason, somebody that was close by this park, they called the police. And you see the video, it plays out. There's a brief conversation. And all of a sudden, it goes from a conversation in which the man was very calm into which the police started demanding him to put his hands behind his back and to do various things. There were issues with this man understanding what was going on. He's trying to get clarifying questions. Before you know it, a struggle ensues. And the next thing you know, this man is shot dead. And so this video, as far as I'm concerned, this is a public service announcement. What to do. Unfortunately, we've been trained to just call 911 for everything. It's like a one-stop shop type thing where if anything happens, we're just trained over the years to just call 911, call 911. But I'm here to tell you that if you have a loved one that suffers or struggles with mental health, the last thing you want to do is just reflexively call 911, because unfortunately, like the situations that I'm talking about, your family member may not get help. And I want to say this too. This is not about police bashing or anything like that. This is simply saying that there are other things that probably should be done before calling 911, and more importantly, before calling police. And so this is what I would recommend. First and foremost, if you have someone with a history of struggling in this area, you probably want to really establish good, solid, strong relationships with, first and foremost, a primary physician, psychiatrist, psychologist. You want to establish those relationships before the crisis happens. Not only that, most police stations nowadays, despite the situations that I've just talked about, nowadays, they're starting to have trained intervention teams. I know here in Indianapolis, they have what's called crisis intervention teams, which is a group of officers and clinicians that team together, where the officers are trained in mental health in particular, and then they also team with professionals to where when folks are having these crisis situations, they handle it together. And it's just a different philosophy. It's not just a straight law enforcement philosophy. It is where they are actually operating from a mental health wellness perspective. So their main thing is to try to keep the person well, to keep the person safe, and to effectively deal with the crisis that the person is having. And so there are these intervention teams are becoming more and more common because we've seen these fatal situations happen between citizens and police. So I would say you want to establish these relationships with primary caretakers, psychologists, psychiatrists. Find out what type of intervention your city or your state has so that you can go and make those relationships before crisis happens. When I say make the relationships, I mean actually reach out to the people. I mean actually set up meetings with these people. And I mean actually introduce your loved one to these people ahead of time. And it may not even be a bad idea, depending on their availability, to meet from time to time, so that when you have to pick up that phone in a crisis situation and you call that person, they already know your family member. They already have some history about maybe possible triggers or what types of things and interventions will work. And believe me, if you build these relationships ahead of time, you will be way ahead of most people who are just operating from the same playbook, and they just reflexively pick up the phone and call 911, not knowing who's going to respond, whether or not that person's been trained to deal with a person in mental health crisis or not. And unfortunately, sometimes, these things end up in fatal situations. So please, ma'am, please, sir, make the phone calls, make the connections ahead of time, plan ahead of time, and I think you'll get much better results. I want to say this. If you're in Indianapolis, I want to give you a couple of phone numbers. IMPD, the Crisis Intervention Team, the phone number is 317-327-3811. And you want to try to see if you can establish a relationship with Sergeant Catherine Cummings, who heads up that unit. Also, the Marion County Sheriff Department also has a number as well, and that number is 317-327-1700. Again, that number is 317-327-1700. And then finally, Mental Health America. You can call that number at area code 317-251-7575. 317-251-7575. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I pray that it will be beneficial to your family and your family member. But please, this is something that when you get done with this video, do this right now. Start to do the research yourself. Reach out to the folks that I've talked about and start to build those relationships so when the time comes, your family member, your loved one can get the help that they need, and we can avoid these tragic, fatal situations. My name's Corey Scott. If I can be of any further help, please feel free to reach out to me.